Before we give the final touches to this template page and actually start to produce pages, we need to take care of the navigation. And I left some space originally for the page nav. It goes here. I'm highlighting that text right now, and I want to see if maybe we can have a simple site with maybe 3 or 4 pages. And those pages would be, and I'm going to write these in capital letters: home, about, maybe products, and then why not have a contact page? Contact, C-O-N-T-A-C-T. And you'll notice, I didn't hesitate at all to just start typing in that list and apparently destroy my design. And that's not what's going on. It's just that's Dreamweaver's trying to show you. You type this text and it's not going to work with your design. If I were to flip to the live view, I could see that this is just a mess. I'm going back to design. And I'll note some things about this, and that is that every single one of these words has now become a paragraph. If I were to look at the code and check out where that is, it's up here, and I have home, about, products, and contact, all separate paragraphs, and they're all inside the navigation page nav. Go back to design. These will eventually become links, so I'm going to take care of that right now. I'm going to add just a hashtag or an orthotrope, I do believe it's called, to each one of these words. I'm going to highlight the word home, and on link, I don't know what page this is going to end up. It's probably going to be index.html, but that still does not exist. So I'm going to just type in a hashtag on link, press return to accept, and the coding has already switched, and now this is now an A tag. I can see it at the bottom in my tag selector. Page nav has now an A. I'm going to do the same with about. Just add a hashtag. Same thing with products. Hashtag for it and contact. And that'll do that. Now I have 4 pages, or 4 potential pages rather, that will be linked from this particular menu. This still doesn't look like a menu at all, and for that I could either explain it to you, or I can actually take you to the page that I consult pretty much every time that I do a horizontal menu, and that is my my link here for W3 Schools. CSS navigation bar will take you to W3 Schools, and we'll give you several examples of navigation bars. Here's one for a vertical, and here's one for horizontal. We want to do something like this. I'm just going to navigate toward the area that I want to use. You can read this at length if you want. It's got lots of great information. It's got lots of great features that you can add to any page. This is nothing special. This is just all text. It's all CSS. Very easy to use. Just going to do a search for horizontal, and just keep on searching until I hit the one that I want. I want to do a horizontal navigation bar, and here's one with inline list items, and then there's one with floating list items, and I think that I want to do the floating list. I want to keep on searching though, because I know that there's a better option. Here is the same thing that I just saw, horizontal navigation bar examples, and I do a lot better when I'm looking at pages that are already made. It's basically like using a template all its own, and here it tells me that I'm going to need an unordered list, I'm going to need list elements, and I'm going to need link elements. That's the A element right there. So by looking at this, I actually get a pretty good idea of what needs to happen in my page. I know that I'm going to need an unordered list that will be composed of lists, list items, and that each one will have a link. I've already added the link, so I don't need to worry about that. What I can do is select the text, home to contact. I started with contact at the very end of contact, clicked, dragged all the way up to home. And then in my properties, I'm going to click on the unordered list. That's the little bullet points there. And that creates an unordered list. My tagging in my code rather has changed, and now I have all these links and they're inside of list items. Some of them look prettier than others, but don't worry, they're all there. Click back to design. Here's the home, and I've got those bullets, and obviously this is still vertical. So that's when I say, well, what needs to happen next? How do I get this horizontal? And since I've already have an open design sample, I know that then my unordered list, and this is CSS coding, and the CSS will need to have a list style type of none. Margins will have to be deleted. The overflow will need to be hidden, and then I can add a background color. So let's go back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to open up my CSS designer so that I can see it better. I'm already inside of the A. That's the only or rather that's the only tag that exists, but it hasn't been specified in the CSS. So since my example first said you have to have an unordered list, I'm going to click on the UL down here in the list selector. That selects all of the items, and it gives me the chance then to go into my selector list and add a UL. This is going to be page nav UL. And what did the example say? Well, it said the UL needs to be list style type none. Go back to Dreamweaver, and my list type style is going to be after all the text. So I click on text, slide down a little bit more to the bottom, and here I see list style type is currently undefined, and that's why we have bullets. I'll click on that and say none. That will remove the bullets as soon as I select it. Now they're gone. And I could change the bullets to something else, but since I'm doing that horizontal bar, I don't necessarily want to have any type of characters. I'll go back to the sample. Next thing I need to change is the margins and the padding need to go to 0. This is something new in Dreamweaver 2015, and that is that if you go to your layout, you see your margin. The boxes have been like this for a long time, going on 3 or 4 years. But now if you go to set shorthand, you can just type the number 0 or whatever number it is that you want, and then every single item in the list will turn to 0. I'll do the same thing for padding. I'm just going to click that to 0, and now my list is kind of flat. It's still vertical, but it has no spacing to the left, right, or above or below, and that's where we want it to be going. Go back to my sample. It tells us that the overflow needs to be hidden, and this will come in handy once we start to add more volume to those buttons, or rather these spaces here, so that they will actually look like buttons. I'll go to my layout properties, go below the padding, etc., and there I'll find overflow X and overflow Y. The overflow CSS is actually just one word. It doesn't necessarily need to specify X or Y. This is something that's very specific to Dreamweaver. So we will just assume that X and Y together will equal all of overflow. I'll click on visible, make sure that it's hidden, and do the same thing with overflow Y. Now they're both hidden. No change here, and that's okay. We won't expect any changes until we actually make the buttons appear. So I'll go back to my sample page, and now I can add a background color. Well, that's going to be up to you which colors you want. I already have these pencils up here, so maybe, just maybe, I want to have something that belongs to that family. So I will say that for the UL in my background color, I'll use my eyedropper. I'll use one of the darker browns. And I'll click here and press enter to accept. And now that covers everything. Pretty much it's just this chocolate cover above everything. The next thing that needs to happen, going back to my sample, is that the list items need to float left. So in Dreamweaver, I've already selected the UL all on its own, but there's the LI still appearing. Clicking on any one of these items in the list, clicking LI, adding that selector. Now I have page nav UL LI, pressing return to accept. And for float, we go to the text, or rather the layout, and below the margin and padding and position and all that, here's the floating. Float that to the left, and that will now make this a horizontal line. I also lost my background color, but I'll come back and I'll find it on the way back. I'm coming back to the sample, and now I have the tags that go with the links, the LIA. Those were already added, and have the A there at the end. I'm going to go to my templates.css and add a new selector. And this is something that Dreamweaver likes to do, and that is that it likes to keep UL, LIA tags on their own, and it's now ignoring that it's inside of the page nav. So I think that just to be safe, I'm going to go to the beginning of that selector and manually type in page nav and then keep UL, LIA, press enter to accept that, and go back to Dreamweaver and see what we got. We have display as block. Go back to Dreamweaver. The display is going to be inside of the layout, so toward the very top there's my display. I'll click this to be block. It's there in the top, trust me. I clicked on block and now there it appears. Next we see that the color, and that's going to be the text color, is going to be white. Whenever you see color like this, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the text color. Go back to Dreamweaver, and text, define the color as white. Press return, and that changes the text color there. I wish I knew really what's happened to my background. I'll have to go back and find it. Next I'm going to see what's next. Text align as center, and that's simple enough. Text align right here is going to be centered, and it is now. Next in the sample we have the padding is 14 and 16, and this is coming from the top and then clockwise. Top right will be 16 pixels, and then bottom and left will be blank. This might present a special problem for us because we have already given this space a definite height. So let's see what actually happens when I go into my layout and then add the padding on top as 14 pixels, and then on the right as 16 pixels. Well, a couple of things happened, and that is that it doesn't like that I gave it way too much information here. Now it's rebelling against me. It's got 14 pixels on top plus all the stuff that it already needed to put in the lettering. I'll go back to the samples. That's what I wanted, 14 and 16. Text decoration will be none. Let me take care of that right now while I'm still thinking about it. Text decoration in text will be none. Here's my text decoration. It's now none. To take care of the problem with the size, 14 on top and then everything else that it needs, I'll have to go back to the original page nav. That's what's holding everything here, and that's what's really making a problem. So if I go and find in my CSS my page nav, just that, clicking on here right now, and I look at my layout, my height is definitely set at 30 pixels. Since I'm going to be adding extra space, I'm just going to let the height of the padding and the content define how tall this is. And what I can do for starters is I can either disable the height or just tell it to remove that CSS property. I'm going to disable it just so that we can keep track of what's going on. And now I have home, about, products, and contact up here, and they're floating kind of weirdly to the left of everything. And I don't know if that means that we have to go back to page nav and make sure that this is floating left. Click on floating left, then that clears up the first part of the problem, which is now everything is under Dallas Office Supply, but my text is over to the right. This is main content in my template.css, main content. I'll find that and I'll make sure that that floats to the left, and now everything seems to be back where it's supposed to be. I'm going to minimize this so I can see my page a little bit better, and I see that my menu is starting to take shape. Since I added 14 and 16, this is kind of very limiting, and by that I mean that it's not looking quite like the sample that we saw before, and that's because I've got 14 on top and 16 to the right and then nothing to the left and the right. So just to see what would happen in my CSS designer, I'm going to find the A, and look for that 14 and 16. I'm going to match the bottom with the 14. So I'll make sure that that's in pixels and put in 14. 1.4. That makes it taller and that makes the text fit a little bit better. And then on the left, I'm going to change that to 16 pixels as well. And now this looks a little bit more like the page we're trying to get to. I said that I would go and look for that color in the background in page nav UL, I do believe. And let's see the background, it's still there. So let me change this from design to actually to live. And there it is, it's just hiding from us. So I'll go back to design and not think too much about it. Also, I don't like the font that we have right now for the links. So I'll go back into my page nav ULLIA and change the font family from nothing, just whatever the default is. And I'll change that to I don't know about Seagull. How about we go back to Gil Sans, which is what we're using up here. And well, let's see, what would the font weight bold look like? Not necessarily any better. I'm just gonna keep it as normal. And let's see, what else do we need to change? It's text align, the padding is there. Text decoration, we've removed it. They suggest that we add a pseudo class and LIA hover and then change the background, so that'll animate our buttons to a certain degree. So we already have LIA, or in our case we have ULLIA. I'm going to right click there and make a duplicate copy. That's the very bottom. I see duplicate, and now I have a copy of it. After the A, I'll type in a colon and search for hover and press return. So every time that we hover on top of the button, it's going to change to something else. Now it needs to still play with the white text, so it'll still be sort of a brownish thing. Maybe I'll switch to, oh, I don't know, maybe like a dark green or something like that, something new. I'm going to click on background, select a new background color, and change that to that greenish or whatever it is I was looking for. I'll start to see if I can pick up any green from any of these. Maybe something there, and I'll select something in this pine family. Press return to accept, and now I have that background color. Let me quickly check if I go to live what happens when I hover, and sure enough, now I have that green show up. However, my text decoration has returned for some odd reason. That may be because the hover still has in its text decoration showing. I'll remove that and make sure that my LIA also has text decoration removed. So now that's gone from both of them, and that looks a lot better. Let me hide this a little bit, and we're almost done with these pages, or at least with the template that we'll be using to make the pages. I'm going back to my design view, seeing some other stuff. Oh, my footer is way out here. Let me check my CSS designer. If your footer suddenly went to the right, it's probably suffering from the lack of floating left. So I will find page footer right there. Make sure that in the layout it's floating to the left. And did it appear? Not yet. Footer, page footer P. Actually, I wanted just a page footer. Right there. Page footer, float left. Left, I say. Okay, so now it's floating to the left, and even my line returned, so that if I went to the live, I could see this a lot better now. Okay. One last styling detail that I want to add in design. Over on the right side, I want this to look a little bit different. I want the bacon ipsum to actually be italicized, so I will be sure to add a new selector, and that's main content, content aside P. I'll press return to accept. In my text, I will change the font style to italic, and I'll give this a little bit different spacing. And not quite yet though, because I want to do something different also here. I want to go to the background for the paragraph, give it a background color of white, and then I can see this text in white. However, it's now too close to its own borders. In the layout, I'm going to add a padding of 10 on the left and a padding of right on the left as well, on the right as well. Did I say left twice? Probably. Why don't I set the shorthand to just do 10 pixels all the way around, and then I'll be happy with that. If I look at my live, then that's looking a lot better. It's looking a lot like what I wanted it to be like. I'll go back to design, and one last thing that I will do on text, I'm going to give this page a heading just before bacon starts. I'm going to put in welcome. Supposedly this may be the index page when we first get there. I'll highlight that, change it from a paragraph to a heading 1, and I'll give this its own style in the CSS. I'll add a new selector, and that's content article H1, and that should pretty much do it. You can change the color if you want something else. Maybe you want to keep on the use a similar green to the one we use, or something like that. And now when I go to try to save this file, if I go to File and Save, it gives me this error. The template doesn't have any editable regions. Are you sure you want to continue? And this is a good time to talk about editable regions. Since this is, I just canceled that. Since this is a template, we want to make sure that either yourself or the person you're making this for doesn't just go in and change things nilly-willy, like the name of the company or where these pages are supposed to be. You do want to give them a little bit of room to play with, and I would say that that's going to be maybe our inside here of our welcome. I'm going to highlight from the word welcome all the way to the end of the second paragraph. I'm going to then go into the insert menu and say insert template and add an editable region. It gives me the pick name edit region 3. I can say just main content so that I know what I'm talking about. I'll click OK, and then a little tab appears along with a border that shows me where this is going to be able to be edited. As I see this page, I see a couple of other problems that I need to fix at some point, and let's see, I'm going on 22 or so minutes. I'm going to, why not, fix them right now. I'm going to open up my CSS designer. I see that there's this box behind, and that's probably the main content itself. It's the one thing that holds both of these two boxes inside. I'll click on that. And what's going on is that we said that the height was going to be 400 pixels at one point, but then we decided we were going to free it. Or at least I decided, and then I didn't change it. So I'm going to remove that CSS property, and now that floats a little bit better. Other than that, I'm sure that I'll find other things to fix, but in the meantime, I'm going to try to save this again. File, save, and now this is saved. If I go to my files, I'll see that my templates was just saved, and no problem, because now I have my template to work with. If I make any other changes, which I will in the next video, then all pages that use this template will follow the same route.